Hi, we're Diamond and Silk, and we love the Naked Truth Report.
Warning, the following program has been rated T for truth.
You can't handle the truth!
Oh, we think you can. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report with your host, truth warrior and mythbuster Kathleen Wells. The place where we distinguish fact from fiction, where data is used to drive points home, and where Kathleen takes the position that Democrats and black politicians have destroyed black America. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report. Now, your host, Kathleen Wells.
Welcome. I'm so excited because I have one of my favorite guests, Michael Calder, the author of the book, JFK versus CIA. We're going to discuss RFK versus the CIA, but before I bring Michael on, there's a few things I kind of want to touch on. Hasn't it been so interesting and exciting? It always is. With Trump, it's always interesting. I mean, we're so engaged with the process, with the political system. So what's good? The good news is that they're going to nominate Trump already nominated the woman that he wanted. She's a conservative. Her name is Amy Coney Barrett. It's a good thing. She's a conservative in the likes of Scalia. This is good. We like that. Why? Because conservatives believe in conserving the family, conserving your money, and conserving, what was the other thing? Let's see. Oh, your business. Yeah. Though conserve your business, conserve your family, and conserve your business. Let's start there. You know, that we can start there and move on up. That's the good thing. Then we're looking forward to the debates on Tuesday. That's going to be really fun. I'm on the edge of my seat. I can't wait for it to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. You never know. It's a mystery because we don't know what Biden will do exactly. Then the other third thing, I just heard that the New York Times, Trump's taxes were leaked to the New York Times. Did you guys hear that? I just saw that in my news feed. So those are the three things that I think are interesting. If I've missed anything, I might remember later. So why don't I welcome, I guess, Michael Calder. Hi, Michael. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report.
I'm here. You ready for a wild ride?
Yeah, I'm ready for a wild ride. Can everyone here, let me push your mic up a little bit. Oh, is it? Okay. I think it's good, right?
You think it's good?
Yeah, okay. I think it's good. Can you guys hear him out there okay? Jeff, can you hear Michael good? Okay, we can hear you good. So this is a wild ride. When Michael was here last, we discussed his book. He's the author of the book, JFK versus the CIA. Yes. What did we learn? That the CIA had JFK assassinated. If you get the book, folks. You'll realize, yeah, that's true. So now we're going to talk about RFK versus the CIA. So, Michael, come on, give us some background on that.
Well, I saw there was a play called The Awful Grace of God here in L.A., and it was going to be about Robert Kennedy, one man on stage, what Robert Kennedy was going through after JFK was assassinated. So, of course, I went there, and I was stunned. Great actor, great writing, great directing, the lighting, everything was superb. And I'm walking out of there stunned at the great performance. But I'm also thinking, well, I know they got Jack. Did they get Bobby too? Because I hadn't explored it in any fashion. So I, just out of intellectual curiosity, I went down to the public library and they had a 1,000-page summary report in rare books section. You have to make an appointment. They bring it out to you. You can't use a pen. They want nothing to go, to happen, anything bad to happen to all these rare books. So I read the 1,000-page report, and it told me it's a mess. There's at least a dozen people talking about seeing Sirhan walking around with another man in a gold shirt and a girl in a polka dot dress. And these three are going all over the hotel that night. Well, I knew enough about the Robert Kennedy assassination that there's not supposed to be a polka dot dress girl. But there they are. There are people who are telling the LAPD in 68, yeah, there is. And I thought, oh, God, if I'm going to do this again, I got to do it like I did with the JFK assassination. I have to go all full bore, which means I would have to read the complete LAPD investigation files on microfilm and everything else belonging to the investigation. I didn't want to do it because it's a lot of work. And I thought, RFK is willing to take a bullet for me. but I'm not willing to do some work. That doesn't equate very well. I kind of felt ashamed about being too lazy. So I thought, all right, I'll go do it. And in Sacramento, at the California State Archives is where they keep all the LAPD investigation files. So I spent several weeks up there. What turned everything around for me, besides reading the trial transcript and the grand jury transcript, everything's in the grand jury transcript. They have 110 or so tapes you can listen to with the LAPD interviewing people. And the tapes are crisp. They're very, crystal clear. You feel like you're right in the station at the time. And I'm listening to Vince DiPiero being interviewed by the LAPD at 4:30 in the morning. Kennedy shot about 12:17 a.m. And Vince says he got a call from his father, who's a maitre d'. Come on down to the hotel, help us with Kennedy. This is around 11 p.m. He gets down there. They put him to work. They have him guard a door that goes from the embassy room into the kitchen/pantry. So he's walking with Kennedy as Kennedy finishes his speech. He's walking through those double doors. And Vince is telling LAPD he's looking down about 20 feet because there's this really good-looking girl, really well-built, in a polka dot dress. And she's got her arms around this guy who's kind of standing on a tray stacker. He's not very tall. And he's got his feet on the tray stacker to get some height, and they're smiling at each other. He describes it as a sick smile. She sees Kennedy walk in, says something to the guy. The guy looks at Kennedy, gets off the tray stacker, takes several feet, walking towards Kennedy, pulls out a gun and starts shooting. So they ask about a bunch of detail about the girl, her looks, everything about her. I'm thinking, well, there's the polka dot dress girl. She's not supposed to exist. Okay, if she exists, then what else is LAPD not telling me? So that's when I got really, really serious. While I'm up in Sacramento, at some point the librarian up there said, they have these same LAPD investigation documents at the library in Los Angeles, so I don't have to go up there. Well, I went up there for all the tapes because they got great tapes, for one thing. So for about a year, I was at the public library reading all those documents, starting from the first page to the last page. About halfway through, I'm starting to feel sorry for Mary Sirhan, Sirhan's mother. I've already figured out Sirhan hadn't done it for a variety of reasons. So I thought, I got to tell Mary, your son didn't do it. If she's still alive, she'd be quite elderly. I have everybody's address because there's nothing blacked out in those documents. So I drive over to Pasadena, hopefully to meet Mary, and I get out of my car and I see a man and a teenager getting into their car in the driveway. I go up to it, and the windows roll down because it's in the summertime. I say, is this the Sirhan residence? And the guy looked at me and said, are you Calder? I said, yeah. And he said, just a minute. Puts it in park, comes out of the car, shakes my hand and says, I'm Munir, Sirhan's brother. Sirhan says to give you anything you want. This never happens. He's very impressed with you. I had been sending documents to Sirhan saying, look, you didn't kill Kennedy because of this. And I'd send him an LAPD document.
But what in the documents made you feel like Sirhan didn't kill Kennedy?
Many, many, many different things. One thing I would send him LAPD documents showing that the gun was held 1 inch behind Kennedy's right ear. And the muzzle was put up against his back for 2 more shots. And I show him all the witness testimony as he's coming from the front. He's never closer than 3 feet. And I give him the verbatim testimony of people who are talking to the LAPD. That would be just one example like that. I checked with the prison if I could send stuff to Sirhan. They said, sure. But Sirhan can't communicate with me or anyone other than family or lawyers. It's some kind of rule. So me and Munir we talked for 2-3 hours. I asked him all the questions I always wanted to ask. And we just hit it off real well. Now, a couple days later, I get a call from Marion Teeter. She's the mother of Lawrence Teeter, who's Sirhan's longtime attorney. We were talking about coincidences and all. Mm-hmm. she had just Munira called her up and asked, "Who is this guy? I never heard of him." She had just asked the librarian if there was a good book on the JFK assassination. They recommended my book. She had just read my book. Mm-hmm. So then she gets a call from Munir telling this guy's investigating the Robert Kennedy assassination, and she gets all excited because she read the book. So she welcomes me on board and says, "You have to call Paul Schrade." And she gives me Paul Schrade's number. Paul Schrade was someone I wanted to talk to anyway. He's a Union man. He's standing behind Robert Kennedy when Bob is shot. He's on stage with Bob as well. And Paul graciously said, "Come on up." He lives up in the Hollywood Hills. Because I know someone slipping behind Robert Kennedy and shooting him in the back of the head while Sirhan's coming from in front. Paul's right behind Bob. I want to ask him, do you see any movement before the shots? Because that movement's going to be the real killer. Anyway, we had a long discussion. He said, "No, I got shot first. I fell to the floor. I didn't see anyone coming up behind Bob." That was the bottom line. But then I got Frank Burns Jr.'s phone number. Frank Burns Jr. is a lawyer. He worked for Bobby Kennedy, when he was Attorney General. When Bobby said, "I'm going to run for president, are you on board?" He said, yeah, I'm on board. He's there that night at the Ambassador as well. He's on stage with Kennedy. So I need to talk to him too, because I've read his LAPD report and his testimony during the trial. So I know he's just a few feet behind Bob Kennedy when he gets shot. Someone has seen somebody shoot Kennedy from behind. It's just impossible that you not be able to do that. So he's very reluctant to be interviewed. He said, "You can have 5 minutes." So I drove over to his house in Hollywood, and we sat down, and it turned into a rather lengthy discussion. We did a reenactment of the assassination. He told me that they were supposed to go a different way. Bob was going another way. He was rushing up to catch him, say, "Hey, Bub, we're supposed to be going the other way." Right before he could say that, Sirhan fires the shots. And Frank tackles Sirhan along with some other people, and he told me they were dancing around and around. Finally, they throw him on this serving table. But what impressed me was he walked back towards me. He had me play Kennedy. He showed me where he came from behind, where Sirhan was, and what happened. He's walking towards me. His eyes are blazing. He's so angry. And he says, "Sirhan did not shoot Bob." At the trial, nobody asked me about distance. It was only after the trial that I learned about the autopsy that Bob was shot from 1 inch from behind his right ear and 2 shots in the back. And Sirhan was never closer than 3 feet and always in front. So I'm getting, these people who were there telling me what's going on, and that was very important to me. I finished all the LAPD documents, and I did everything I could to help Sirhan get out of prison. But I get a phone call from William Pepper out of Clear Blue Sky. He's an attorney. He became the new attorney for Sirhan. Apparently Sirhan said this guy knows what happened to interview me, so he met him up at the Hilton, I think at the airport. You have a mezzanine, and he puts his tape recorder on, and we start talking because he knows nothing about the case. He knows everything about Martin Luther King's assassination. He knows nothing about Bobby's. And so we start talking. And we kind of felt each other out right away because he said, "So, Sirhan had a change of personality after he fell off the horse. In '66, Sirhan fell off a horse because he wants to be, he's training horses. He's not good enough to be a jockey. And the theory is he fell off a horse, and that's when his personality changed, because his personality does change in '67, and so we go into '68. He's a shy guy, he's a nice guy, he's a warm guy, he's a loving guy. Then he becomes hardened and quick-tempered. I said, yeah, his personality changed, but it had nothing to do with falling off the horse. What's happening is CIA is putting MK Ultra on him, intensifying it to get in preparation for the Bobby Kennedy assassination if Bobby runs for president. CIA doesn't think he's going to run until '72. But if he does, they want to be ready. And that's why Sirhan's personality starts to change. And as soon as I said that to Bill Pepper, his eyes lighted up. So he knew we're on the same track.
Well, why did they tell us? Why did they choose? Why did the CIA choose Sirhan to go under MK Ultra, and also explain what MK Ultra is, which you mentioned in your book?
Yeah. In 1954, Richard Helms, Assistant Deputy Director for Plans, proposes to Alan Dulles this new program he wants to develop. And it's a mind control program. He basically wants to program assassins. Now, that's not how he writes it out, but he says he wants to develop methods to create amnesia in a person for events preceding and during their use. He wants to enhance hypnotism so you can control a person better. He wants drugs. They have all new drugs coming out so that person can become dependent on another person. When you add everything that Helms wanted to do, which is in the book, it spells Sirhan, many years later. So they work on it forever. Congress hears about it, and but that's going to be after Bobby's killed. That's going to be after Bobby's killed. There's an inspector general who hears about it. He wants to get rid of it because he says, we're going to get in a lot of trouble if we're caught. The people who are using aren't volunteering. Everything we're doing is immoral. Let's stop doing this. Mm-hmm. Richard Helms argues, so no, we're so close now to being able to control human beings in this way, and we need to keep doing it. So that's MK Ultra. It's a behavior modification program. I got the whole thing out of government documents so I could read exactly what Helms was trying to do. So, and it fits in with Sirhan perfectly. Now, Sirhan's only 24 when he's arrested that night. But someone had to tip the CIA, this guy is a likely candidate for someone who has a type of mind that maybe you can hypnotize, maybe you can do the other aspects of MK Ultra. What I tried to explain to Bill Pepper was it's not just about hypnotism. It's way deeper than that. What they do is they give you another separate identity. That identity is controlled by CIA. And so that's you can't reach the guy through hypnotism. You got to get a psychiatrist who's used to people with multiple personalities, and they don't know they have multiple personalities. Some psychiatrists can reach into your different multiple personalities. That's the type of person they needed to try to reach Sirhan. Mm-hmm. But they didn't get him. They got someone else.
What do you mean they didn't get him? They got someone else?
Well, they got a great psychologist and someone who's great at hypnotism, Dan Brown, out back east. Mm-hmm. I spoke to him. I respect him. I like him. He really knows a lot about the assassination. But you really need to be the type of psychiatrist that can go into multiple personalities.
Oh, I see. But when was this procedure being used on Sirhan? When was he undergoing this?
Well, watch this. From LAPD documents, mm-hmm. These two waitresses go to LAPD. They say, we have something to tell you. We have to keep it secret. Please don't use our names. We're going to get in trouble. And they say they were working as waitresses at this restaurant bar in Pacoima 4 years ago. So we're talking 1964. Sirhan and other Arabs would come in after midnight on a certain day. It's Arab night. And there was a bartender there named Ali Kala. And Ali Kala would tell him, watch that boy. He's going to be famous one day. I'm training him right. So they would watch Ali Kala go up to him and say something to Sirhan. Sirhan's only 20 years old. He's not even supposed to be in the bar, mm-hmm. But he doesn't drink anyway. He would go up to Sirhan, say some words to Sirhan, point to a man. Sirhan would go up to the man and start screaming at the guy. Kala would then go up to Sirhan and say something else, and he stops talking immediately. So it looks as far as 1964, Sirhan's already under control of MK Ultra. They're just making sure it all works. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's 1964, and they got 4 more years to work on it.
So they were anticipating that RFK would be a problem because of what happened to JFK?
Yeah. They killed his brother, but mm-hmm. They're killing the brother, but Robert's an attorney, and he's attorney general, and he's fearless, and he's young at some point you got to take out Robert Kennedy. Not immediately, not even when he's a U.S. Senator. But if he runs for president, you got to take him out. So they already knew the day after they killed John, Bobby's next. It's just a matter of when. And June of '68 was when.
And you say in the book that RFK knew or suspected that the CIA had his brother assassinated.
His first phone call from his home in Virginia was to John McCone, director of CIA. He said, "Did you guys do this to my brother?" And McCone said, No, we didn't. Of course, John McCone, he's not really running the agency. His brother Jack appointed John McCone as director after he fired the top 3 men for assassinating foreign leaders. So John McCone doesn't know what's going on, but Bobby's instincts was CIA. He was right, because it's the man underneath John McCone, Helms,
yeah.
And he's using his own MK Ultra. So that's some of the background there. More recently, on the polka dot dress girl, Brad Johnson's from Atlanta. He's an expert on the assassination. He has all the film from that night. He had me review all the film from each of the television stations, local and national, to see what I could see. And I saw a lot. But he asked me to go on an assignment. He wanted me to talk to Sandra Serrano. She was 20 years old, outside the hotel, on a staircase. It's hot, midnight. And she already told the LAPD back then, a girl in a polka dot dress and 2 men came running up the stairway and went into the hotel. Not too long after, they come back running down with the polka dot girl saying, "We shot him. We shot Senator Kennedy," right? So that's the beginning of the polka dot dress girl. And at the same time, you have Vince DiPiero telling the LAPD at 4:30, girl in a polka dot dress is with Sirhan in the pantry. So the quest has always been to find out who the polka dot dress girl is. So Brad recently, he tracked down 4 people who were still alive who said they saw the polka dot dress girl with Sirhan and the guy in the gold shirt. He sent them 12 photographs. Could you pick one of them who looks most like the girl that night? And all 4 picked girl number 2. But he doesn't have the big kahuna. He needs Sandra Serrano, the girl on the stairs, to identify his photograph of the polka dot dress girl. So he asked me to interview her. And I did, and she was greatly reluctant to, and I can tell you about it later. You want me to keep going?
We have, let's see, 2 more minutes.
Okay, sure. I track her down, and I charm her. He thought I could charm her, because no one else, she wouldn't see anybody for years. She's sick of it, right? People sending her pictures. Is this the polka dot dress girl? She looked at the 12 photographs, and I don't know which photograph it is, of course. So she looks at them really fast and angrily, but I saw she paused at girl number 2. Then she looked at the 12 again, slower, pausing at 2, again, pausing longer at 2, and the 4th time, pausing at 2, and she says, this looks like the girl who was with Sirhan that night. So I text Brad, I say, because I'm hungry, I want to go have some lunch, I don't want to talk to him forever. Girl number 2. So, and I told him I'd email him a detailed report of what happened. And then he emailed back, that's the girl everyone else picked. So the girl's name is Elaine. Oh, God, I forgot her last name now. Good-looking Anglo-Saxon gal named Elaine is apparently the polka dot dress girl. Then I send it to Sirhan. I'm saying, why are we giving Sandra Serrano and all these other people? How about the guy who was with her? So I just sent him the picture, a copy of it, and said, does she look familiar? I don't want to lead him too much, right? He gets back to Munir and says, tell Calder, I'm 80% certain that's the girl I was with that night. I'd be 90% certain, except her hair's a little different. Her hair, I told Munir, her hair's in a bouffant style in the photograph. It was not in a bouffant style that night. So between Sirhan and Sandra Serrano, this is some girl named Elaine.
We're going to take a break. Don't forget, what is it? Balance of Nature. Yes, I have a good memory. Why? Because of Balance of Nature. If you go to balanceofnature.com and put in Neck and Truth Report, you get 35% off. It's a good thing. Try it. We'll be right back with Michael Calder and RFK versus the CIA and the MK Ultra program. And Richard Helms, too. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Naked Truth Report. My guest, Michael Calder, author of the book JFK versus the CIA. We're discussing RFK versus the CIA, that assassination, and how evidence and, I want to say the autopsy report and witnesses make it so that Sirhan could not have shot RFK, correct?
And perhaps I should add, because I always think everyone knows everything I know, but they don't. Carl Euchre is a maitre d'. He's leading Bob Kennedy through the pantry. And that's when Sirhan appears in front of Carl. Carl's about 6 foot tall, really broad shoulders. Sirhan is able to get 2 shots off in the direction of Bob Kennedy. After the second shot, he grabs Sirhan's arm, pushes the gun up to the ceiling, and pushes it away from Kennedy. So there's no more shots towards that direction after the second shot. Yet Kennedy is dead with bullets in his back and the back of his head. And Carl Euchre tells them during the grand jury what exactly happened. The grand jury is wonderful because it's just days after the shooting. There's no conspiracy set. The deputy district attorney for LA for Los Angeles, he's not part of the conspiracy. He just wants to find out what happened. So he's asking all the right questions, and everybody's telling the truth that happened a few days before. Vince DiPiero's telling about the girl in the polka dot dress. Carl's saying how he's leading Kennedy, and Sirhan appears in front of him, and he grabs his arm. So everyone's telling the truth, and this is where you get a lot of truth, is in that grand jury testimony. Things start to change and get a little muddled as we go along over the next 12 months or so. But there you go with Carl Euchre.
And so Robert Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, was shot point blank from the rear.
Well, Thomas Noguchi does the autopsy, and he has a gun held point blank behind Kennedy's right ear. And he has the gun being pushed up against his jacket coat, 2 shots close together. So that's what Noguchi has, and Noguchi says that's what he has. So now you got problems, You got eyewitness testimony, Sirhan's coming from the front. You got autopsy saying, no, someone's shooting from behind. The question is, how come nobody sees someone shooting from behind? That was my quest. That's one of my quests. The other was how they get Bob into the kill zone. You've got Sirhan waiting. You've got an assassin waiting. You've probably got a CIA team in the pantry waiting for Kennedy to finish his speech. They're not there by happenstance. They know he's going to be brought to them. Kennedy being brought to them is part of the plan. So I wanted to figure that out as well, and I pretty well did, I think, yeah.
What do you mean? Kennedy being brought in their direction?
Yeah.
He was moving when he was shot?
Well, he goes up and gives a victory speech.
Right.
Great speech.
Because he won California primary.
Yeah. He was told by one of his aides, go to the right, and we're going to take care of you from there. What they're going to do is walk him downstairs to the ambassador room where he can address all the people who helped get him elected, all the volunteers. Things are changed at the last moment. As Kennedy's going to his right, well, what happens is, it gets a little complicated. Remember Brad Johnson, who I was talking about? I'm looking at film of that night, and it's film that no one else has seen because it's not on television. The cameras are on, but it's just cameras are on, right? And so I see Kennedy coming down in the elevator. He's pausing there because Bill Berry, his security man, wants to make sure the way is clear. I see people coming up to Bob, and then they're starting to walking. And I see this one really good-looking guy, 32 years old, looks like a movie star. He's acting like an advanced man, and he's walking with Kennedy, and he's smiling when Kennedy's flirting with the Mexican girls in the kitchen. And he's on stage with Kennedy to Kennedy's left, about 6 men to the left. As I'm watching the film, right before Bob stops, he's in his speech, the good-looking guy says something to Bill Berry, Kennedy's security man, standing in front of the good-looking guy. They have to be talking, which way are we going to take Bob off the stage? Bill Berry is expecting Bob to be brought to him to the left side of the stage, and he's going to walk Bob through the pantry and into the colonial room to address the pencil press. That's not what happens. Right as Bob finishes his speech and he's walking.
Oh, I didn't think he was walking. I've seen that. I don't remember exactly, but I thought, if I remember correctly, it's like he said, okay, now let's go on to the next state or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he shot, I thought.
No.
I didn't know he was moving.
Oh, no. There's 3 or 4 minutes before that happens. Now on to Chicago, we'll say.
Right.
And, okay, he has to get off the stage, right? He has a few words with a newsman. Then he starts to move to his right. But while that's happening, the good-looking guy who looks like a movie star who's unidentified, he goes up to Carl Euchre and says something to Carl in his ear. Carl Euchre's in the tuxedo, the maitre d', who's guiding Kennedy that night. Carl grabs Kennedy's attention, come this way. So Bob starts to follow Carl, going the opposite way, towards the left. As he's coming, Bill Barry thinks Carl's bringing him to him. And Bill says, no, this way, this way. Then you hear someone say, this way, Senator. And it's the good-looking guy. And he has a curtain that's open to the back of the stage. So Carl takes Bob through the back curtain, which drops at the back of the stage. Well, by this time, there's just too many people crowded, and Bill Barry can't get there. He's his security guy. So Bill Barry tries to catch up going around to the left side of the stage. So it's this good-looking guy who is unidentified, and I'll tell you why in a second, who more or less passed Bob off to someone in the back part of the stage. Now, Carl Euchre is asked by that deputy DA during the grand jury hearings, who did Kennedy meet back there? Because the lawyer is suspicious, right? Like I'm suspicious. He thinks if there's someone waiting to shoot Kennedy, he's got to be brought to the person who's going to shoot Kennedy. So he wants to know who's back there behind the stage. And Carl says, I don't know who he was talking to. They're Kennedy people. And the deputy DA says, how do you know they were Kennedy people? And Carl said, well, Kennedy did what they told him to do. So Carl gets orders from Uno Timmonson, his boss, who's standing there as well. And Uno tells him, take Kennedy through the colonial room, which means he has to go through the kitchen first. So Carl then takes Kennedy through the double doors that lead into the pantry, and then Kennedy's shot like a minute or so later. So the question is, who did Kennedy meet backstage? And nobody in those documents will tell me who Kennedy met, because that person told Kennedy, no, we're going to the colonial room. And nobody's piping up. Nobody's saying, well, I met Bob backstage, and we're going to go to colonial room to talk to the press. No one's saying that. No one's volunteering it. So I know that's a bad guy. But
I don't know why I've always thought that he was shot on stage.
Probably the editing. The editing. They do that, and then the next thing you see is Kennedy and people shouting, and Kennedy's been shot. Yeah, there's 3 minutes between that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So my quest was also to find out who's the guy who said, this way, Senator, which I did, and I'm pretty certain I know who met him backstage. Because Erwin Stroll is a teenager. He's at the door, close to the pantry doors, and he told LAPD that Pierre Salinger met with Bob backstage, and Jess Unruh met with him, and then all 3 walked through the double doors. So Pierre Salinger is the one who's leading Bob into the pantry. Pierre Salinger is supposed to be a Kennedy file. He's press secretary for President Kennedy. Bob asked him to do the same thing for him. Here's the thing with Pierre Salinger. In '66, he's asked if he would take a job on. There's a man who owns airlines. CIA Air America was helping in the war effort in Vietnam, but they got found out about it. So now they want another airline. And they went to this guy who has a big airline, and he wants to get a subsidiary airline to do what Air America does. He asked Pierre Salinger to run it. Pierre said, yeah, sure. It's a lot of money, right? And he's based in L.A. But the point is, from '66 on, Pierre Salinger is de facto working for the CIA. He knows the airline's a CIA front. And here's Bobby asking him to be his press secretary. And I'm thinking Pierre Salinger betrayed Bobby. that Pierre Salinger is going to make sure Bobby walks into the trap. I'm pretty certain. Because that's where the evidence is moving towards. He's the one who's backstage. He will not say that he told Bobby that. Erwin Stroh says he said he was there backstage. He's working for CIA for 2 years before Bobby's shot. I think Pierre Salinger betrayed Bobby.
And he was the press secretary for John F. Kennedy.
Yes.
And when he was the press secretary for John F., was he working for the CIA then?
That's the question. When was he? That's very good of you. That's very good. I know in the 50s, because I got some information from the government about Pierre Salinger. Great newsman out of San Francisco, did some exposés, went to L.A., worked with the LAPD intelligence unit in the 1950s. And he says he really had a good time working with these guys. So I don't know. At some point, Salinger went on the other side. Was it during President Kennedy's? Because he's not in Dallas that day. He managed to get on an airplane flying to the Far East, so I don't know. But I think with Bobby, for sure. With John, maybe.
Oh, we already have calls. I was going to go on. We're going to talk about MLK. Maybe I'll have you back to talk about MLK because you know those documents too. We were discussing that off.
I only know a little bit of MLK, and I discussed it with Bill Pepper.
Oh.
Yeah,
yes.
He told me some stuff.
So we have calls. Why don't we take some calls? Carlos and Carson, hi. Welcome to the Naked Truth Report.
Fantastic program here. Very intriguing. Question for your guest. The CIA, since back to Kennedy, was very much against the Kennedys because President Kennedy fired Alan Dulles because he deliberately fouled up on the Bay of Pigs. He did it deliberately, okay? And Kennedy knew it, so he fired him. So he made enemies out of the CIA. So it doesn't surprise me that the CIA now wants to bump RFK. But getting to Sirhan Sirhan, to me, was a mind-controlled Manchurian candidate. He had connections with a CIA psychiatrist named Jolly West, who worked on the MK-Ultra mind-controlled experimentation of the CIAs in the 1950s. And Sirhan had connections with him. I think he was mind-controlled by Jolly West. There were other people, of course, that were also part of the same connections with Jolly West. Charles Sampson, the son of Sam killer over in New York, Charles Manson, Timothy McVeigh. Quite a few people were being mind controlled by Jolly West of the CIA. So you can see that they used Sirhan Sirhan as a ploy, as a decoy, being mind controlled to blame him for the whole thing. It's hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious, but it's ludicrous.
It's tragic.
It's preposterous what's going on.
It's tragic that these dark forces, a deep state, is controlling our politics. Our leaders are being, our government is being controlled by, how do I want to put it? There's forces, dark forces, controlling everything. Or there's another thing. There are other things going on that we don't know about the American people. Is that how?
Well, there's satanic forces basically because a lot of the people that were recruited by the CIA to be mind control Manchurian candidates belonged to the Church of the Final Process, which was a satanic church over in San Francisco. Charles Manson was a part of it. So was Sirhan, and the son of Sam, serial killer in New York. So, see, there are satanic forces that really control the deep state. It's all about Satanism and a destruction of God, eradication of God from our lives. It's all part of the
Let me interject for a second. Jolly West, Bill Pepper asked me, because the question is, where does Sirhan get his brainwashing? It wasn't at the house. He had to go somewhere. And I told Bill Pepper, no, it's at UCLA. Jolly West is head of the UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute back in the 50s and 60s and on. So you're right, it is Jolly West right here in L.A. at UCLA. And that's very good. And I was surprised you knew about Timothy McVeigh. That's very good.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Carlos. Okay, Jim, welcome to the Naked Truth Report.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mr. Calder. I spoke to you last time. Carlos is a really wealth of information, and he, William. There was a book called "The Assassination of Robert Kennedy," the searching look at the cover-up and the conspiracy by John Turner, and William Bryan was the other CIA man who was tied in there. And so I'm going to be very short here. It's really tragic when you look at the killing of President Kennedy. I should say executions of him and his brother and Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King's brother was murdered too. His mother was later shot. And Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and maybe even the shooting of George Wallace in Watergate. Nixon had people trying to kill him as well. And Vietnam. And you look at all these together, and it's sad that the people in the society today, not just the millennials, but people that are boomers in my age group and older, they're so consumed by Trump, anti-Trump in this era, they cannot see how all these events, these assassinations, Vietnam, Watergate, Iran-Contra, and all these things led up to where we are now.
Right.
And they cannot, and Peter Dale Scott, by the way, who's a brilliant historian who's up at Berkeley, he was the first one that I know of that actually coined the phrase the deep state. He wrote books about these. And there was Penn Jones and others. Mort Saul, the political satirist. Jim Garrison, I think, was railroaded. He was right on the mark about a lot of stuff. It's sad. And the people of that generation, the World War II Depression-era generation who survived after the war, they were basically honest, and they were led to believe that there was no such thing as conspiracies, even though we'd had Lincoln and others, part of that, who were there was conspiracies. So we've been fed a line of baloney, and it's sad, but there were people who predicted where this would go, and look at where this is doing. It's eating away and corroding away our republic.
Mm-hmm. Wanted to speak about William Bryant for a moment. Is that right?
Yeah.
Brad Johnson gave me another assignment, which I hated.
Mm-hmm.
He found out all these documents had just been found from Mayor Yorty. Mayor Yorty kept it in his house, I guess. So he begged me.
Sam Yorty, he had been mayor back then, yeah.
Yeah. So he begged me to go through all the files, which I did not want. I told him it's downtown L.A. I never go downtown L.A. I told him about the awful traffic. Don't make me do this.
Yeah.
But I owed him favors for him letting me see all the film. So I went down there and looked at all these documents, and I sent one document to Brad. It was an invitation by William Bryant to Sam Yorty to come over to the house for a Christmas party in '67.
Mm-hmm.
William Bryant and Sam Yorty were friends.
That's interesting. Bryan. That is very interesting.
Yeah,
and little coincidence or not, huh? I'll leave you on a final note. Wait. Did you ever hear? Go ahead.
2 weeks ago, what was the question? Because a couple of guys came up with great questions.
No, I was going to say, no, I spoke to you 2 weeks ago, but there's a book by Charles Crenshaw, Conspiracy of Silence. He was the main, surgeon who, operated on President Kennedy and Oswald. And he said that when he was dealing with President Kennedy's at the bed there, and every drop of blood represented the life of our republic going into the bucket. Mm. And then 2 days later, this booming voice calls in, and it was Lyndon Johnson. He says, "I want a deathbed confession from the assassin." He says, "Well, Mr. President," he says, I don't know. He's comatose. He's been shot in the abdomen." And of course, he couldn't get it. But it was interesting that Johnson wanted a deathbed confession, saying, "I am the assassin." And here Oswald had said, "I am not the killer." And it's just it just makes you wonder all the maneuvering and all the covering up that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see.
And that's Crenshaw's book?
Charles Crenshaw, yeah. Conspiracy of Silence. And Tom Jarrell, really great reporter, interviewed him on 2020, and that was when his book was published in 1994.
All right, thanks.
Oh, we have 90 seconds. I'm going to have you back. We're going to do MLK and also bring it back to how this may impact Trump. You know what I'm saying? What the deep state is trying to do to Trump. Next week, though, we have Elrod McLean, who's going to discuss. He's running for on the school board in Santa Barbara. He's got some dirty secrets. So you want to tune in next week for that. He's going to talk to us about some stuff that he found out about the school system and the school board. So I want to thank I want to thank you, Michael, again. I'll have you on again because people like you and you're so informed, so it's a good thing. We'll discuss MLK and how everything relates to Trump and maybe next week, the week after next, okay?
Perfect.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks, folks. This is the Naked Truth Report. We'll see you next week. We'll be discussing the school system and the school board. We'll have dirty secrets. Thanks for joining me.
She knows how to